Hey, today we're going to talk about fold equity. First of all, what is fold equity? Second of all, how does understanding fold equity make our poker game better? So how do we get to be better poker players by understanding fold equity? And then also, how does fold equity change between tournament play and cash games? Because even though fold equity means the exact same thing, these two concepts play out very, very differently in cash games and tournament play. So what is fold equity? Fold equity is basically having enough chips to where if you go all in, you're going to get somebody to fold. That's all that means is having enough chips to get somebody else to fold. So there's different levels of fold equity. There's different levels of fold equity depending on how many chips you have, and there's different levels of fold equity depending on what your opponent has, okay? I'm never going to have enough fold equity to get anybody to fold aces, okay? But I might have enough fold equity to get somebody to fold king 10, king jack, king 9, ace 9, okay? Deuces, trays, fours. Do I have enough fold equity to get somebody to fold that, okay? And so that's something you need to make sure that you're aware of at all times is how much chips do you have to where if you jam all in, you can get somebody to fold, because it becomes very, very important, especially later on in tournaments, that you're able to get more people out of the pot, because if you have 4 or 5 callers in the pot, no matter what, your chances go way, way, way down. You want at least to get heads up against somebody at any point in the tournament to be able to have a good chance at winning a tournament. Okay, so if you're not already, you need to be making sure that you are looking at your stack size and understanding how many big blinds you have left, okay? A lot of new players, they only kind of count their chips in the monetary value. You need to understand how many big blinds you have left when you're playing tournament play, okay? You not only need to understand how many big blinds you have, you need to understand how many big blinds everyone in your table has, okay? Because as you get into the tournament, those people are going to be shoving, okay? So you need to understand what their shoving range is, okay? The least amount of chips they have, the wider range they're going to shove with, okay? So if they've got 20 big blinds, they're not going to be shoving usually with jack queen, okay? But when they have 10 big blinds, they could easily shove with jack queen. And you need to understand not only how many big blinds you have at all times, you need to understand how many big blinds your opponent has, especially if they're yet to act in front of you or behind you, okay? The concept of fold equity is something you really, really need to understand when you're playing tournaments, because there are certain times in the tournament where you need to make sure that you're maintaining enough fold equity, okay? So there's lots of times when you're going to get into a situation where you don't really know whether you should call or not, okay? You think you might have somebody beat, but you don't know for sure if you have them beat, okay? One of the things you really need to take into consideration is, if I'm going to make this call, is it going to put me to a level below the fold equity line that I want, okay? Is this going to put me below 20 big blinds? Is this going to put me below 15 big blinds? Is this going to put me below 10 big blinds, okay? You need to understand this and consider it when you're making these calls versus folds, okay? I'm not saying don't call when you should call. I'm just saying a lot of times you're going to get in this situation where it's 50-50. Do I make the call or do I make the fold, okay? Just beware that if you make the call, you may be losing fold equity. Okay, and it's that important to understand so to make those decisions. Also, one thing you need to know also is the more times you jam in the last 30 minutes or an hour, the more chips you better have or the better cards you better have, okay? Because people are going to start looking you up, okay? The third time you jam in 30 minutes, people are going to start calling you more wide, okay? They're going to start calling you whether or not they have the chips or not, and they're going to start calling you whether they have the great cards or not, okay? Because by the third time you jam, they think you might be doing this with jack queen, okay? So you need to be aware of that as well. Okay, so how does fold equity differ in cash games, okay? In cash games, it's different. Again, your big blinds are not going up. Once you're out in a tournament. Cash games, you can always rebuy. Those are the big, big differences between cash games and tournaments, of course, okay? So when we're talking about cash games, we really want to focus on stack versus pot ratio, okay? How much money do I have? How much money's in the pot, okay? The reason being is because a lot of people will call off things they're not supposed to normally call off in tournaments because of ICM reasons. They're going to call it in cash games because they can just rebuy, no problem, okay? And if they're getting good pot odds, doesn't matter what the bet is. If the pot odds are good, they're going to make that call. So it doesn't matter if you're betting $100. If there's $500 in the pot and they're getting, 4-1 on their money, they're supposed to make that call, okay? So we think of fold equity completely different because of that. This is why you never really want to be below anywhere from 40 to 60 blinds, big blinds minimum when you're playing cash. If you're playing cash and you don't have at least 40 to 60 big blinds going into a hand, there's a good chance that in later streets, you're just not going to have enough money to get them to fold. Okay, so that's the difference between fold equity in cash games and tournament play. Hope you learned something. Good luck and happy grinding.